This is the SIG Tango, one of the new breed of LPVOs that goes up to 10 power. We're going to take a closer look at it on this episode of Moondog Industries. Hey, Moondog here. Welcome back to the channel, and today I have a SIG Tango. This is a 1 to 10 power by 28mm second focal plane LPVO. We're going to take a look at what you get in the box. We're going to look at its features in greater detail, and then we're going to take it outdoors and to the range and see how well it performs. First, let's take a look at the contents of the box, but rather than doing a tedious unboxing video where you're watching me fumble through the packaging, let me just show you what you get in the box. It's a pretty full-featured kit, so you're pretty much good to go. This is a SIG Tango MSR 1 to 10 by 28mm LPVO, and this looks like a really nice piece. I don't know if you get a sense of this just looking at the footage here, but there are some nice design details. Overall, perfect matte black finish on the outside. There's knurling on all of the surfaces that are meant to be manipulated, but the knurling, interestingly enough, feels like it's buffed down, so it's not really aggressive there, but they kind of made up for that with the very broad, very chunky cuts, so that it does provide some good gripping surfaces despite the softened knurling, should it be in wet conditions or potentially wearing gloves in cold weather or whatnot. But there's little design details like what's the deal with this white line here? Is that purely aesthetics? Not sure. Let me know in the comments if you know. But here's one little touch. There's on the battery cap there, there's a little bit of a curve, a little concave there, and that's a nice little touch. They could just make that a flat, but they went and gave it a little bit of a curvy surface there, so that's a nice little design touch. And inside of here, under the cap there is a CR2032 battery, and they did include one along with a spare and a bag, so that's a nice plus. Now let's take a look at these caps here. Even have a nice SIG Sauer logo underneath the cap, so that's tasteful, so it's not sort of blatant on the outside. But let's take the caps off and take a look at these lenses here. Nice clear lens. Doesn't appear to be a heavy tint on the coatings on the outside, but yeah, overall nice looking. Let's take a look at these caps here and check out these turrets. Now, I checked this out a little bit earlier, and these seem light, but they're actually not. I don't believe they're polymer. I think they're actually metal, and you can reset them. It does come with an Allen key, though. I'm not sure why you'd want to reset the zeros on a capped turret, especially since they're so low profile and the numbers are so small. It'll be hard to really gauge where the zero is. I mean, is it that notch? Is it that next notch? I guess if you really looked at it with a magnifier, maybe with better eyes if you had them. But let's take a listen to these turrets. Nice. It's pretty loud. Not super crazy loud, but pretty good. Not very tactile though. So you're gauging where your clicks are, or you're moving it just by audible cues. And like I said, it's kind of hard for me, my old eyes, to tell whether am I on the 2, or in this case, am I on the 5, or what, or am I on the 2.5? Kind of hard to tell because the numbers are so small. In any case, I would just be looking and seeing if are my hits landing where I think they're going to be, and I'm going to be happy with that. Each of the clicks is 0.5 MOA, so that's good to know. Now let's just check out the windage here. Also loud. A little more tactile, but not much. And again, a little hard to tell easily which numbers are on, but that's fine. They're capped. As long as they're zeroed out and you're at the range you want to be, that should be fine. This has 11 levels of illumination, and the 11 is pretty darn bright, but we're going to check that out. You can see there, of course, not really focused, but we're going to check that out on the range and see if it's daylight bright. Our Magnification ring turns. Not super smooth though. I mean, it's smooth enough, but I was expecting it to be a little more butter than it is. You can hear it more than you can feel it. And it does come with a removable throw lever there. Just unscrew that and you can take that off. And it goes from 1 to 10 in a 180-degree throw. And our ocular fast focus, now that's smooth. And it even has a little reference dot there. Maybe a little, well, you can hear a little something towards the end there, but yeah, pretty darn smooth. Alright, so that is our SIG Tango, and we're going to take it out to the range. We're going to mount it onto, first we're going to mount it onto a cantilever mount that they included, but let's take a look at that next. Alright, this is the cantilever mount that they included with the Tango, and this is a really nicely built cantilever mount. I mean, I don't know if you can get a sense of the little details here. The surface is really well done. They really finished this out well. For example, cheaper budget cantilever mounts, you'll find a little fine pitting on the surface, just little tiny little nooks and dots in there. This one is pretty darn smooth for a matte black finish on there. And there's little touches like these cuts to lighten the weight on here. They took the extra effort to mill those out to lighten the overall weight of this cantilever mount, yet still keep it strong. That is a nice touch, and they also tell you how much weight, how much torque you need to apply to your torque screws here. So that's very useful and helpful. And this is it's considered a quick release mount. You can unscrew and screw them on with your fingers and just tighten them up with a small tool like a flathead screwdriver, or potentially, you can't really do it with a coin the way it's set up on here, unless this is, depending on how deep you end up cinching this down. But you can use a flathead screwdriver to cant this and to lever it tight. And the crossbars are squared off, so they function also as recoil lugs. That is a very, very nice touch. So this overall is a really nice cantilever mount, and I'm glad SIG included it with their Tango.
Alright, we are looking at the peak of Mount Davidson 1,300 yards away through the scope at its lowest power of 1, and we do this to see the best overall image that we're going to get through this glass in terms of sharpness, brightness, contrast, color, and also to see if there's any distortion at 1 power, because a lot of 1 power LPVOs do suffer from a little bit of fisheyeing around the outer edges. And looking at that telephone pole on the right, there's just a barest hint of a little bit of a curvature, but really it's pretty flat. So 1 is pretty close to 1 in terms of this particular scope. If you note the color and brightness and detail of the buildings and the sky inside of the scope versus outside of the scope, you're getting a pretty true rendition. I also note that you can see a bit of the eye cup and the tube, so your field of view isn't as big as I was expecting. And as we bring it up to its maximum of 10 power, we're seeing a darkening of the image, a haziness, and a loss of detail. And that's pretty common with 10 power LPVOs. They and this one have a fixed parallax at 100 yards, so looking at a 1,000+ yard image, it's never going to be as sharp as a 10 power scope with an adjustable parallax focus. That's just the laws of physics. But I can see the trail marker sign at the top of the hill there. That's a good proxy for a 30-inch steel target at this distance.
Okay, we are at the range and we are testing out the SIG Tango 1-10 by 28. We are looking through the scope at 1 power here, and this would be a good time to do a range of adjustment test. Let's start with our elevation. And there we go, we stopped. Just nice solid stop right up to the wall there. Let's go the other direction. Nice solid stop, no dead clicks. Okay, let's bring it back to centered. I think that is our 0. Let's go with our windage now. Alright, that's stopped right there. About 3 targets worth of adjustments there. Let's go in the other direction now. Yeah, it's just stopped. There we go. That's the other end of that range there. Let's bring it back to our center here. And I think that should be 0 there. Let's bring up the magnification to 10. Yeah, we are smack dab in the center where I started earlier. Okay, so this will be a good opportunity to do our box test just to see if this thing will come back. Do a full rotation on our elevation first. And we'll do a full rotation on our windage. And then back on our elevation. Whoops, went too far. There we go. And then full rotation back on our windage. I think that's, yeah, pretty much where we started. All right, so these turrets are good, which I wouldn't be surprised about with a SIG. Okay, I moved the target 4 lanes over so we had a little more shade and less back glare because we're going to take a look at the overall image that we're getting through the glass. And we're also looking at a still image from the video so that we're not distracted by any heat shimmer. Now, the first thing I notice is that there's quite a fair bit of chromatic aberration. That's the color or purple fringing you're seeing there at the very top of the white target backing. There's a kind of purplish line, and at the very bottom of that white target backing, there's a green line. That is a sort of prismatic effect of light getting bent through the glass elements at 10 power. And this can cause your image to look less sharp or even glowy as the different colors are split up. Case in point, looking at the paper target at the bottom left, we can clearly make out the holes on the reactive sticker target in the center, which is not surprising, but there are 2 additional 22 bullet holes below that, and I can barely make them out. So if you're shooting 5.56 at a paper target, I think you'd be a little challenged to use this optic to spot for yourself. And for a more objective measure of clarity, let's take a look at the US Air Force optical resolution chart on the bottom right. I can make out both horizontal and vertical lines down to element 1 in group -1, or if I was being more charitable, I'd say even element 2. Now, since this is an LPVO, perhaps we're being a little too nitpicky. Suffice to say, we can clearly make out a man-sized target at 50 yards and more than certainly at 100 yards. So next, let's take a look at that reticle and its illumination and how easily it can get you on target. All right, it's off. Now we have it on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, just like Spinal Tap.
These go to 11.
And at 11, it looks pretty darn bright, certainly in indoor or low light conditions. And let me just bring back the magnification to 1 so we can see how clearly that center horseshoe shows up. And in direct sunlight, well, maybe not quite noon daylight bright. But in indoor or low light conditions, that illuminated horseshoe is bright enough to draw your attention and help you get a quick bead on your target. And let me bring it over to a blank part of the wall and we can take a closer look at that reticle. Now this is a second focal plane reticle, which means the reticle doesn't change shape or size as you change magnification. It's a compound kind of reticle here. We have a traditional European or German style T reticle with the 3 bars at the bottom and left and right, ending in arrows pointing to the center of the reticle. And the center reticle itself is a horseshoe with a dot, style made popular by ACOG. Or at least that's where I first became aware of it. If somebody else came up with that design before ACOG, please leave me a comment and let me know. You have arrowheads on either side of the horseshoe for leading moving targets, and you have a calibrated bullet drop set of subtensions below the horseshoe, depending on the distance to target, as well as its own calibrated lead dots. Now, depending on the gun that you have this scope mounted and the ammo and the caliber, well, those distances are going to vary. Some might consider this kind of reticle a bit busy, but I actually like it. I like having those reference lines and dots so I can make my own corrections for Kentucky windage. Overall design, I like this reticle a lot. It's one of the better ones out there in my opinion, but ask 10 people about a reticle and you'll get 20 opinions. It's very subjective. And in actual use, I didn't find the reticle busy at all. If anything, it was great. I was quickly able to find and engage my targets accurately. Alright, so that's the SIG Tango, and before I get into what I think of the scope after having tested and tried it out, I'd like to ask a quick favor. Hit that like button right now. It just takes a second. And you're still watching this video right now, so that probably means you like it, or at least are getting some good information from it, so I'd appreciate it when you hit that like button. And consider subscribing to this channel. It doesn't cost anything. It's absolutely free when you hit that subscribe button, but all you're doing is letting the algorithm know that this is the kind of content you like to watch, and it'll start suggesting more shooting sports videos in your feed as opposed to the random crap that it usually does. So yeah, win-win. Okay, so the SIG Tango. This is actually one of the few 1 to 10 power second focal plane LPVOs out there, surprisingly enough. Let me know in the comments if you prefer a first focal plane and an LPVO, but I personally prefer a second focal plane, and this is probably one of the best examples of a second focal plane 1 to 10. I was a little disappointed that there was so much chromatic aberration at 10 power with this, but again, for an LPVO at medium and close range, that really isn't that much of an issue. I can still make out my targets very easily and clearly. It only becomes, again, an issue with the chromatic aberration when you're dealing with very small targets. So yeah, maybe not so much of an issue with this particular scope. But overall, design is great. I love the little design details in this. And if you're interested in picking up one of these scopes, I'll include product links as well as more information in my full written review at my blog, so you can find where the retailers that have these available, at least the ones I've been able to find. So definitely check out my full written review. You can find a link to that in this video's description. And thanks again for watching. You be safe out there. Moondog out. Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.